I want to show you what could be a very quick and easy dinner to make. You can make this as complex or as simple as you want. I'm going to do it a little complex because I enjoy that. This is going to be lamb and pasta. I'm going to make pappardelle. I'm going to use lamb, but you could just as easily use chicken breast for this. I've done that. It's delicious. As far as the pasta, I think penne would be very good in this. You could use spaghetti, you could use fettuccine, you could use egg noodles. In this case, the pasta really is only the vehicle that delivers the delicious meat and pesto to the mouth. The trick is you want to cut the meat extremely thin. Try to get it paper thin, and therefore you're going to need a sharp knife because that's what helps you to cook the meat so quickly. In fact, the pasta, if you buy dry pasta, that'll take longer to cook than the meat. So let's start making this lamb with pasta. I'm starting off by heating some water to boiling on the stove. If you're going to be using dry pasta, put salt in the water. The pasta will absorb that salted water and it'll improve the flavor a little bit. With fresh pasta, because it's only going to cook in a minute or so, you don't salt the water. You put salt in the pasta dough. For this recipe, you're going to need to feed about 4 people about a pound of meat. That's 454 grams. I buy lamb in the leg of lamb. I trim the fat off and then I cut it up and put it in pieces like this. I got a dozen or so of these pieces in the freezer. That way I always have lamb when I need it. I actually eat far more lamb than I do beef. I prefer the flavor of lamb. As I mentioned, I want to get this paper thin. I have a really sharp knife here. This is semi-frozen, which makes it a little bit easier to slice. But if your knife is sharp enough, you can cut thawed meat really thin. Okay, so I'm just finishing up here with my lamb. That's done. I'm going to place that in a bowl. And I'm ready to start making my pasta. I have my pasta machine set up. This is a piece of my pasta dough that I actually made last night and I left it in the refrigerator overnight. I'm going to be making, as I said, pappardelle. Pappardelle is the second largest of the Italian pastas, lasagna being the largest. And pappardelle normally is served with a game meat like rabbit. I'm going to be using mine for lamb. Because it's such a large piece of pasta, I roll the pasta extra thin. So my machine, my little dial here, goes from 1 to 7. 7 rolling the thinnest pasta. I normally use number 5 for most of my flat pastas. I'm going to roll this to number 6. And then I have a little flour duster here that I can use to just lightly dust this with flour so it doesn't stick in the machine. There is my long sheet of pasta. And by the way, this is from 1 egg. This is 1 egg and enough flour to make pasta. If you want to know how to make pasta from scratch, on my website, mobilehomegourmet.com, I have a recipe and a link to a video if you want to watch me make pasta from scratch. Now I need to cut my dough up into pappardelle. As I said, these are the second largest flat noodles, and hopefully this will cut okay because my phone just rang and I've been on the phone with a friend. So hopefully this hasn't dried out too much. I'm just trimming off the edges here. Just to get rid of those rough edges. And then let's see, how many pieces do I want here? I think I'm going to go 4. So I'm going to go right down the middle and then go down the middle of each of these. This is big pappardelle, and then I'm going to go across the middle. So that, in my mind, is a piece of pappardelle. It's a big, flat noodle. I have the rest of my dough to cut up, and then I'll be ready to start cooking. The last thing to show you is my pesto. When I make pesto, I make a lot, and I froze what I didn't need at the time in these plastic packages. This I made a kind of a dry pesto. I call it a dry pesto because it didn't have a lot of oil. I was using it more as a coating rather than as a sauce. Okay. On my website, you'll also find a recipe for 4 different kinds of pesto, and there is also a link, again, to a video. To this, I want to add more extra virgin olive oil because I want this to behave like a sauce. You need maybe 3/4 of a cup of pesto for 4 people. I could measure this to see what I've got. A little bit more oil. Again, I'm using extra virgin olive oil. I think of extra virgin olive oil as a flavoring oil, not a cooking oil. Finally, I want to taste that. My infamous red handle tasting spoon. That is wonderful. I love pesto. That's ready to use. I've got a skillet here heating on the stove. This is where I would use pure olive oil rather than extra virgin olive oil. Although this isn't going to cook at a high temperature. So you could use extra virgin olive oil for this. And because this is so thin, it's going to cook very quickly. And as I said, you could use chicken breast for this. I think even some fish would be good in this dish. There are just so many meats and fish that taste good with pesto. I would use a firm fish that wouldn't break up too much, but I would cut it up. Even shrimp. Shrimp would be good for this. And when cooking lamb, it's like cooking beef. The more you cook it, the tougher it'll get. You think about steaks, you want them medium rare or medium. Lamb is the same way. Don't overcook it. I'm going to turn the heat off on that. Some of those pieces are still pink, but they'll continue to cook. And then I'm going to put some of my pesto in there, but not all of it, because I'm not making a full amount. The pesto, by the way, I did measure that. It came with exactly 3/4 of a cup. I'm getting good at eyeballing things. If you do things by weight, it's 6.6 ounces or 187 grams. That's it. My water is boiling. I'm going to put my pasta in. That'll cook in a minute. So there is my water boiling. I'm going to drop my pasta in there. This is thinner than most of the pasta that I make, so this is probably going to cook in 45 seconds to a minute. Just going to bring that back up to the boil, and that'll be done, and we'll be ready to plate and eat. My pasta is done now here. Nice big pieces of pasta. I'm just going to go from the pan using a strainer. I also call this a spider. I want to just stir this up and get this coated well. And that is looking marvelous. That is ready to serve. Okay, to plate this, I'm going to put some of my large pieces of pappardelle on there and get some of my meat on top. Like so. Couple of ways to garnish that is just a little bit of olive oil on there. This is extra virgin olive oil. Gives it a little bit more flavor and a shine. And then you can put some flakes, just a few, of Romano cheese on there. There it is. Lamb and pasta. Last step is to see how good that tastes. This is one of my favorite pasta dishes because I love lamb and I love pasta. Oh, that is so good. Big piece of pappardelle here. That is delicious. So excuse me, I'm going to go enjoy my lamb and pasta. For a printable PDF copy of this recipe with step-by-step photographs, visit my website, mobilehomegourmet.com, and look on the home page or in the recipe archive.